Hi, I'm Scott Flowers with Cloud Ninjas. Today we're here to talk about Supermicro X12DDW-A6 motherboards, and specifically we're going to go over the RAM and CPUs that go inside. Let's get rolling. Well, hey, thanks for stopping by today to learn a little bit more about the Supermicro X12DDW-A6. Do us a favor, if you find anything in this video useful, click that like and smash that subscribe. All right, well, let's get rolling. First things first, let's cover the motherboard itself. The motherboard is a proprietary motherboard. A lot of what Supermicro does is ATX or extended ATX, and the boards themselves are compatible, and you can kind of, or I should say the boards are compatible with a bunch of different chassis, so you can take one board and throw it into a tower or to a rack mount, a 1U or a 2U or a 4U, and that's really awesome. And one of the things that I personally love about Supermicro, in this case, it is a proprietary motherboard. There's no going into it. This is the chassis that you will be looking at. As far as the CPUs are concerned, there are two CPUs inside. It uses an LGA 4189 socket, which means you're using Intel Xeon 3rd gen scalable processors, which is honestly, I think, pretty awesome. A lot of what we do is 1st and 2nd gen scalable procs with slightly older machines. This is brand new, latest and greatest, which is pretty awesome. It's competing with AMD, Milan, and Rome CPUs. So this is a like I said, pretty awesome processor, pretty awesome system as far as performance is concerned from the processor side. On the RAM side, there's 16 DIMM slots inside. It accepts DDR4 memory. You can use a number of different speeds. You can use 2666, you can use 2933, or all the way up to 3200. So again, as far as the RAM is concerned, awesome performance, the latest and greatest that you can put inside. As far as the sizes, you can use a 16 gig stick, you can use a 32 gig, 64 gig, 128, 256, 512, it just keeps going. It's crazy. You can put an amazing amount of RAM into this. And as far as the different types of RAM is concerned, you can use ECC registered, you can use load reduced, and you can use Intel Optane Persistent 200 series memory. So let's start with ECC register. ECC register, which is also known as an RDIMM, you can max out at 4 terabytes using 16 256 gigabytes at 3200 speed. With load reduce, also known as an LRDIMM, it's the exact same as far as like the overall scalability as RDIMMs, and you can get 4 terabytes using 16 256 gigs at 3200 speed, so literally they're the exact same. Now the real cool part is when you put in Intel Optane Persistent memory, the way that Intel Optane works is you can only put in 1 DIMM per channel. So you can technically, and these are 2 DIMMs per channel, so you can technically put 8 of them in using 512 gigabytes, which will get you 4 terabytes of Intel Optane, and that leaves you 8 extra spaces, and then you can drop in 8 256 gigabyte load reduced modules, and you can get all the way up to 6 terabytes of RAM, which is, in my opinion, it's kind of insane. It's really awesome to think that you could actually put 6 terabytes of RAM into a 1U system with only 16 slots. I mean, a lot of systems these days have 24 slots, so just the idea of that just kind of blows my mind, to be honest. It's just awesome performance overall, and we'll show you on the Intel Optane side kind of how the channels work in a minute when we open it up, but before we do, I'm going to grab my ESD gear. Just kidding, I already got it on. Let's get rolling. All right, we're going to go ahead and open it up. So you're just going to come back here, and there's a screw. You're just going to unscrew it, and then the top will just slide right off. Lift the top up, and voila, we are in. So as we discussed, there's 2 CPUs. You have CPU 1 over here and CPU 2 over here. CPU 1 is going to control the 8 DIMM slots over here, and CPU 2 is going to control the 8 DIMM slots over here. Supermicro, you might not be able to actually see it on camera, but right here they've actually labeled the DIMMs, which makes it really easy as far as just loading it and knowing which slots to put everything in. And of course, in the user manual that came with the server itself, there's also a guide for this, and on the website there's a guide that shows you how to load everything up. So let's get rolling. We're going to take these 2 air baffles out. This is honestly my only gripe with this design and this board. I feel like this is a really awesome system, but I don't know, these air baffles look kind of cheap. But that's just my opinion. So we're going to take the air baffles out. You got some really nice heat sinks here. So as we discussed, CPU 1, CPU 2. So when you come over here, you're going to see the way that it's currently installed. We only actually have 4 16 gig modules in here. We're going to load this up with 16 64 gigs. We're only putting in 1 terabyte, and as we discussed, you can put in a lot more than that, but 1 terabyte for what we're doing is more than enough and will be very sufficient for our customer and what they're doing. All right, so first things first, I'm actually going to remove the DIMMs that are in here, and then we're going to discuss how to properly load these. So I'm going to go ahead and start right here and just show you how I like to do it when I'm removing them. So I like to put my hand on top, because sometimes when you're taking the tab out, the module likes to just shoot up. In these newer systems, the tabs are definitely a little bit tighter. And then I like to make sure when I'm taking a module out that I put it into a tray. Because what's real important to me is protecting the parts, right? There's no use in taking your modules and tossing them onto a table and potentially shocking them from ESD or knocking off a capacitor or anything like this. So you just need to be very safe with how you're handling your product, which is half of what we focus on over here is just safety and protecting the product, because that is very, very important. And yeah, these tabs are very tight, to say the least. There we go. So all right, so we're just going to slowly move these out, and then we're going to install the new ones in. All right, now that we have our DIMMs removed, a couple of tips I like to just point out here. And again, you don't have to do any of this. This is just stuff that we do to protect the parts and protect the system itself. So I like to pop open all the tabs, because I'm about to load everything up. And before I start installing modules, I don't like to be holding RAM and trying to do the tabs at the same time, because you could be improperly holding the RAM, you could accidentally drop it, you could damage a capacitor. Those capacitors that are on there are just so easy to knock off that you really have to be kind of careful with them and treat them like a baby a little bit. So, all right, we've got all the tabs open, and over here we have some brand new Samsung memory. Never been used, nice and clean. Okay, so before we install these, I did want to note, if you look right here, there's a notch in the middle known as a key. This notch is really important because it's not perfectly in the center. So when you go to install your module, if you have it flipped the wrong way, you could actually damage the leads on the module, and you could potentially damage the DIMM slot. And on a system like this, that's as expensive as this is, that is the last thing you want to do, is damage the motherboard itself by improperly loading something. So first things first is just make sure you line up your DIMM slot properly. So in this case, it's actually like this. So when you go all the way down, you can see it's lined up properly there. So, okay, next thing is, what DIMMs do I install in? Let's just say you're not maxing this out and you're putting in how it was originally, 4 modules, or you're putting in 8 modules. Where do I load them? Well, that's a great question. So right here, I'm going to put it forward to make it easier to see. So all the other tabs are open. The one that I just closed, that is A1 for the first CPU, okay? The one next to it, I'm closing this one, that is B1. So those would be the first slot of the channel, and then the second slot of the channel, okay? And then you come back over here, and this is going to be in the NC one. And then this one right here is going to be D1. And then when you come back around over here, you're going to have this one right here is going to be E1. And then on the outside is going to be F1, G1, H1. Okay, and again, it's all labeled on here, which makes it a little bit easier, but like you saw how it was loaded originally when there was only 2 DIMMs inside, we had actually put it in A1 right here, so the one that's just open, and then E1 over here. So that was the proper way. And then when you come back around over here, and again, it's, as I said, it's labeled, you're going to have A1 is the second to last tab over here, and then the last tab is going to be B1, and then you're going to come back around, you're going to have C1 on the inside, and then D1 on the outside. And this is for the second processor, okay? And then when you come back over here, it's going to be basically the exact same, and you're going to have put the one in right there. So that's going to be E1, and you're going to have F1 on the outside. You're going to have G1, and then H1. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense for everyone. I'm going to go ahead and pop it back open, and I'm actually going to just max this out and completely install them. And a couple things here, I'm having to repop all the tabs again because I like to do that. Okay, so a couple things here. When you're installing your memory, okay, as we discussed, you need to have it lined up properly. So I'm going to go ahead and line it up properly right here inside A1. You'll notice I'm not touching the memory. The memory looks like it's installed. It's not installed properly. It's not even inserted. So if you were to fire up the machine right now, the module just wouldn't even register. It would tell you have a bad DIMM. And it's not that it's a bad DIMM, it's just not seated properly. Not properly seating RAM is realistically like the most common issue that we see, where someone thinks they have a bad DIMM and they just simply didn't seat it properly. It happens all the time, and I don't care if you've been a technician 20 years or this is your first day on the job, it's a super common mistake to be made because you get in a good groove, you're loading everything, and one's just slightly out. Like right now, it's obvious it's not all the way out. Most of the time, and you want to hear these 2 clicks when you put it in. Not super loud, but most of the time what will happen is you can see how all the tabs are sticking out minus the one that I've put in, and the tabs are in. So sometimes, let's just say all these were in, you'll see a tab that's just kind of jetting out a little bit, like, you know, maybe about like that far, and it's kind of hard to see. I mean, it really is kind of hard to see, but just that little bit right there, the module's not fully inserted. So at the very end, what I do is I look and make sure that all these tabs are even, because if they're not, then a module is not seated properly, and then you're going to boot it up and then have to get back in here and deal with the headache. So just make sure you seat it properly. I know I'm stressing the point, but just make sure you seat it properly. This is very, very important because if you don't have it seated properly, you'll run into issues on the back end. So, all right, I'm going to go ahead and keep on trucking here and put the next one in. And really, we're just going to load this all up. So I'm going to hit the fast forward so that I don't waste y'all's time, but we're just going to get this completely filled up and be right back. All right, so now we've got it completely loaded up. So like I said, I like to, at the end, like this tab looks like it's a little bit out. I like to make sure all my tabs are in. And these all look good. There was that one, and this one's a little questionable. And it's probably fine, but again, I like to just be extra safe to just make sure I don't have any issues. Basically, once I put it back in the rack, I really don't want to have to pull it back down because one DIMM is an issue. So everything looks good. We're good to go. We're going to put these air baffles back on, drop the top, and hey, we just loaded this bad boy up and put it to 1 terabyte. Now do us a favor, if you're looking to buy any Supermicro new gear, X12DDW-A6 or anything different for that matter, would love the opportunity to quote you guys. Email us at sales@cloudninjas.com. That's sales@cloudninjas.com. We integrate a ton of Supermicro and a lot of other systems for that matter, Dell, HP, etc. Would love the opportunity to work with your team, so do us a favor, and like I said, email us at sales@cloudninjas.com. I'll put the phone number down below as well. And if you made it this far, hey, click that like, smash that subscribe. Thanks for stopping by, guys. Have a great day.